summertime, when you see me, you know everything. Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow.
I'm blushing. Whew. Estate agents, you are live at the EXP UK annual conference. Please do not swear. I cannot believe we've got Davina McCall in the building joining us for this year's event. How crazy is that? However low Scott and I set the bar on this presentation, at least we all know that the only way is up from this point.
Confident start, Ben. Well done.
As always.
Look, we were asked to open the conference, and that's a really big deal for both of us. So we just want to start by saying thank you for this opportunity. We really appreciate it. We've both enjoyed playing our part in EXP's unprecedented growth over the last 6.5 years, and we're beyond proud of what we've achieved so far. Looking at this room today, pretty hard to believe it hasn't always looked like this. So today we want to start at the beginning by talking a little bit about our backgrounds before EXP, then a quick look at how EXP has exploded across the UK, and then, most importantly, what all this means for you right now.
So before we talk about EXP, I want to quickly take you back to where it all started for me. And I promise this won't be as painful as Adam Day's AI experience, and it's not going to be a full Netflix documentary about my childhood. Don't worry, nobody needs that. Although if Netflix are in the room, with Davina being close by, we can definitely talk after the conference today. Now, I was raised in a small but an incredibly loving family. That's me there with a full head of hair with my beautiful mum. I didn't grow up with a male role model in the house. Instead, I was taught how to be a man by two incredibly strong women. And I know here at EXP, guys, we're definitely not short of strong women, but for me growing up, it was all about these two, my mum and my nan. Now, my nana instilled something in me that has honestly never left me. It was this belief that if you set your mind to achieve something, you can always find a way no matter what. Work hard, keep going, and just figure things out as you go. And I was very lucky to kind of have that baked into my mindset from a very early age, but I never contemplated working for myself, standing on stages like this, owning my own business, working with people like him, talking to people like you, because I never had that behavior modeled. I often use the phrase that it's hard to hit a target that you can't see. And growing up, I didn't have people around me talking about building businesses, let alone showing that behavior. Nobody was sat at the kitchen table talking about equity, leverage, personal brand, or passive income. We weren't doing vision boards, we weren't manifesting, we were just doing our best to pay rent basically and not go homeless, although we did come incredibly close on more than one occasion. So for me, and perhaps for some of you in this room today, work meant just go out and get yourself a job, a normal job, a 9 to 5, a wage, security. That was the only ceiling that I could see. And then I fell into property. There's me at one of my first days at work. And when I fell into property, I mean I properly fell in. You can see here that I'm doing my best not to drown in the absolute sea of stress and carnage that we all deal with. But at this point in my life, it's worth me pointing out that I graduated university not long since and found myself sharing a bunk bed in my mum's room with my little brother. Not ideal for a young man with a full head of hair in his early 20s, looking as good as that. But I love my mum dearly. I should probably point that out in case she ever watches back and sees this presentation. But it's fair to say that we can't live together. We just clash far too much. So I needed to earn enough money to move out of my younger brother's bunk bed and buy myself some independence. And whilst I was at university, I had a commission-only job selling telecoms door-to-door to people who already had telecoms. It was tough, it certainly wasn't glamorous, but as a student, that commission funded the tequila, the baked beans, and the dance floors at 4 a.m. in the morning, which definitely needed paying for. And throughout, when I was a little bit older, sort of the prospect of earning commission again really appealed to me, so I went in pursuit of a sales role, basically. And there it was, an opportunity to join a very quickly expanding estate agency in Manchester. And I thought, lovely, that sounds like a bit of me. I can see I can earn some cash there. But what it didn't explain is that the salary was minimum wage. And even with the commission, the hours were so long that by the time you equated what you'd worked for what you earned, you realized that maintaining minimum wage over the course of a month was often a real result. But I really did love it. I loved the thrill of selling. I loved the heat of a negotiation. I loved problem solving. I loved the fact that you could help someone through what is definitely one of the most emotional transactions of their life. And pretty quickly, I fell in love with property too. But as I started to invest more and more time into my craft, to put more and more deals on the whiteboard each month, I had a quiet thought in my head. And a voice that started to gain more volume as the months went on. And perhaps some of you in this room today can relate. I started to ask myself, Ben, can you do this for yourself? Is there a better way to do things? If I were the boss, What is it that I would choose to do differently? And because I had a very healthy mix of ambition and probably naivety as well, I decided the answer to all of the above was a resounding yes. So I blogged myself a government startup loan, I set up shop from my kitchen in my one-bedroom flat, I got myself a phone book and a Sharpie, and I started cold calling strangers. Now, that was the whole business plan, guys. There was no CRM, no clever sales funnel, just a phone book, a highlighter, and the optimistic belief that if around 5% of people move house every year, then surely 1 in every 20 cold calls I make has to be worth something. And that was the blueprint. And the crazy thing is that it worked for me. Eventually, I grew that business. We recruited staff. I'm sure Maddie and Luan, who are pictured here, would be thrilled that I'm sharing this photograph today. They were wicked to work with, and we even secured an exit for that brand, which sounds much more impressive than what it was in reality. I say exit like I was carried out of Silicon Valley by venture capitalists. That wasn't the case. I'm no Oliver Gleave or Adam Day, shout out Hatch, but it was a good run. And more importantly, around that time, I met the lady that changed my life. And very predictably, life changed fast. I went from being a single man after a business exit to becoming a family man almost overnight. My beautiful partner and my 2 amazing boys, shown here, Benji and Riley, changed my life and my perspective on the world. I became a grown-up straight away, and I started to do grown-up things. I took out a mortgage, and then not long after that, Esme was born. And suddenly, I had 3 children, a mortgage. I had a husky who's basically child number 4, but much, much higher maintenance. And all of my professional ambitions, you know, the dreams I had of working for myself in property were very much still there, but now they were sat next to something much, much bigger. Sat next to pressure, sat next to responsibility, sat next to a real desire to provide for someone other than myself. And if I'm honest, all of that brought a quiet anxiety about what the future would hold. Because having children is a strange thing, as it says on the slide there. You know, they're the biggest justification for playing life safe, but they're also the strongest motivation to get off your ass and make a change for the better. So what does an entrepreneur do when they feel a little bit lost? They make slightly ridiculous decisions, it would seem, and I was certainly no different. So I decided to launch a pizzeria, but quickly realized it was difficult to earn a crust. So I'm here all day, guys. I launched a pet accessories brand, and everyone thought I was barking mad. Yeah, there we go, I'm here all day. But you'll be really, really grateful to hear I didn't go into pun writing. But I did have another go at launching my own estate agency. I went alone. And then I quickly discovered that passion is fantastic, but also cash flow is quite important when it comes to this industry. So, still determined to work in property, I tried something else for a spell. A time that I'm sure you can all agree was truly magical for the industry that we all love. But the truth is this, is that none of this really captured my heart, or my interest, or more importantly, my finances. And then this little fella walked into my office, EXP landed on my desk. People think that's AI, it's an actual photograph. But if I'm honest, the day that this happened is the day that my life changed. Not just my life, obviously Adam's life, but my family's life, my children's life, the world that I was raising those 3 beautiful children in. Because EXP didn't just give me another way to sell houses, it gave me another way to think. To think about business. That was sent from Esme's nursery on one of the first outings. I remember getting that photo and absolutely breaking down. The proudest day of my life. It changed the way that I think about relationships, about collaboration, and most importantly, about happiness. And I don't want to go too deep into EXP just yet, because Scott's already looking at me like he's dying to get the microphone back and get the spotlight. And we've got plenty of time to unpack EXP over the course of the next couple of days. But what I will say is this: happiness is deeper than money. Money matters, of course it does. I remember my first ever Christmas here at EXP, and every penny I had that year after joining up in October went towards compliance, envelopes, and stamps. Becca had to fully fund our Christmas, and that year I couldn't afford to buy a single present for my children. And as a man, as a dad, as a parent, that was very tough for me to deal with. We don't have time to go off on too much of a tangent today, but I always remember taking a call from one of our partners in Sutton Coldfield, a chap called Mark Bentley. He rang me around that time. God, I'm going to break down today. What's going on? But Mark said, trust me, Ben. He said, he'll be okay. He'll work out. Keep showing up. They'll be grateful for the work that you're doing, and everything will be okay in the end. And it still chokes me up thinking about that today. So I share that because if you've emptied your bank account to be here today, and you find yourself questioning things, just remember that advice that my nan gave me when I was young and that Mark gave me in later life. You just keep going. But look, once your financial needs are met, other things start to matter just as much as money. Your time matters, your headspace matters, the depth of your relationships matter, your fulfillment matters, your health matters, and being present for the people that you love well and truly matters. And for me, EXP has not just allowed me to support my family financially, but it's also allowed me to be there for them as a dad and as a partner. And that's the part that I personally value the most. So Scott, I'm going to hand back to you before I literally cry in front of 400 estate agents. Over to you.
Well done, mate. So I've got a pre-written line here that says, please don't cry, Ben. If you cry, I will. Ben's made that slightly awkward for me. He's right, though. Being there for the people you care about, that's always the thing that matters the most. But I do feel like I want to add something important here. Being away because you're working hard to build something for them, that is being present too. And I think that's really important, that you don't ever let yourself feel guilty about that. So a little bit about me. At school, despite only really showing up when I wanted to, I somehow scraped together some pretty decent GCSEs, but then managed to fail every single one of my A-levels, every single one, ungraded. So naturally, with no qualifications, estate agency it was. And that turned out to be one good decision in a long run of fairly questionable ones, because by 36, I described myself as rather lost. And the strange thing was, nothing was actually wrong. Home was good, Vicky, the kids, all good. On paper, no reason to complain. It was just my work. Work was the bit that wouldn't come right, and there's a particular kind of frustration in that. You go home to a life you love, you should feel lucky, but you lie awake thinking your ambitions are never going to come good. You feel like you're letting everyone down, and I felt like that for good reason too, as I'm about to show you. And I've never written this list out before, so let's see how we get on. This is every sales job and business I had between 21 and 36 years old. British Aerospace, Gibson's Property Services, Miles and Bar, Waterview Homes, Foster's Property Services, Scott Gunn Property Consultants, that was a disaster, Gillingham Football Club, CD Sales Recruitment, Boardworks Software, Water's Edge Homes, Reeds Rains, I'm going to pick up the pace here for everyone's benefit, HQ Recruitment, TMS Estate Agents, Arklow Estates, Guide Recruitment, Locate, TDM Recruitment. And then, Ben, I'll see your pizzeria and I'll raise you.
By the way, guys, this thing had a stripper pole.
Which
Scott.
is genuinely the only thing I've got happy memories about when it comes to running this bus. But there's a few secrets held within those pink walls. And just be honest, how many of you, if my CV landed on your desk, would have hired me? I'm not going to ask for a show of hands because I think I'm already getting the show of hands. I used to feel like a quitter, but when I look back now, I do allow myself to at least see a man who refused to stop starting. I'm really hard on myself, I know many of us are, but the one thing I'll give myself credit for, I never stopped trying. Every time it didn't work, it was a few times, I would dust myself off, roll up my sleeves, and have another go. I always had promise, but I just never stuck around long enough to use it. Everyone kept telling me I had something, and honestly, I kind of felt like I did too. But I'd start something, smash the exciting bit, the new bit, the bit where it was still a novelty, then it'd settle into a routine, the same tasks, different day. And the second it got boring, I would just switch off. I'd get frustrated, and I'd go looking for the next thing. The businesses were the same. They actually all made money. Start was never the problem. The problem was one, inevitably, the excitement wore off. Now, by 36, that pattern absolutely stopped becoming funny, and it started to scare me. I worried I'd get to the end of my working life as someone who could have done something, but never did. All potential, nothing to show for it. Like Ben, I started out my life on a council estate, one of Margate's finest, and probably still the place I feel most at home. We used to move home constantly when I was a kid. Between the ages of 5 and 15, I lived in more than 30 houses for one reason or another, with the main reason being we didn't pay our rent. So I was always used to upheaval and change, and I think that taught me to be quite adaptable. And maybe that's partly where my determination in life comes from. When nothing's given to you, you learn to either go without or go and get it. And that's what I did. So at 18 years old, exactly the same as Ben, I'd shared a room with my little brother. And understandably, I was desperate for my own space. So I decided to go out and get it. I dropped my CV into every estate agency office in all the towns near me every Saturday morning. And I did that every week for around about 8 weeks. Eventually, a really nice Scottish guy called Alex Doherty, owner of a company called Gibson's Property Services, said very, very politely, could I stop? And I rather cheekily said, I'll stop as soon as you give me a job. And so, with a bit of consideration, he did. I bought my first house when I was 19 years old, and I then knuckled down, and by the age of 20, I actually had a small buy-to-let portfolio. I'd completed full set, a flat, a house, and a bungalow. And that paid for me to do something I never thought I could do, and that was travel the world. And I spent almost 2 years backpacking the USA, South America, Asia, and Australia. On my own, we had no phones back then, just me, my lonely planet, and a penknife, just in case I got in any bother. I came back thinking I'd done the big adventure. Turns out the best one hadn't started yet, because I'm going to do the same as Ben.
It's hard, isn't it, when you're...
Oh, God, we've practiced this a few times. This didn't happen once. Because not long after landing at Heathrow, I somehow convinced this woman to go out with me. Yeah, she's pretty hot, that big as well. I like it. She approved that photo as well. Went through one or two. I don't know why I did this, and I've seen it on the big screen earlier, and I'm full of a little bit of regret, but just to give you some idea, this is what I looked like at the time. Not entirely sure where my confidence came from, but it came from somewhere. I think at the very least, this proves I can sell. Here's what I don't say enough. Every one of those jobs, every business, the party bus, all of it, Vicky watched me come home saying, this is the one, and then watched it not be again. No complaints. Even when family and friends poked fun, she never did. She'd just say, okay, what next? And I'm grateful that she did, because she's the reason I got to give it another go time and time again. 18 years married now. This is the difficult bit, isn't it, Ben? My boy Rory is 17, and my daughter Bo is 15. He is actually 6'2". Sorry, he's making me look very, very small in that photo. I reckon he'll be up here one day, although thankfully my daughter takes after her mum. And this is what made the work thing so frustrating. The most important thing in my life, my home, my marriage, my family, I'd got that right, committed to it and not lost interest. So I knew I could stick to something if it mattered. I just hadn't found the work thing that did. At 36, I was still the same bloke, happy at home, but capable of more, just scared I'd never find the work thing that stuck. And then EXP came along and helped me change everything.
Oh my word, a pink party bus complete with stripper pole. Wow, that is something. I'm not sure where we go from here, to be honest with you guys. I think like we're learning a lot about Scott already today, and it's not even lunchtime on day one. Now, when we talk about EXP, I think it's easy to now look back with hindsight and make the whole thing sound much more strategic than what it actually was in reality. Like we were all sat there in 2019 with a whiteboard, a green juice, and a 10-year plan to disrupt UK agency. That definitely wasn't my reality. Maybe it was Adam Day's. I mean, he'd certainly love you to think that he's a genius. But from my perspective, I didn't see any of this coming. That said, I did feel like at the time the industry was ripe for change. Costs were rising. Good agents were becoming frustrated. On the ground, people were working harder and harder and not always building something they actually owned. People were finally highlighting the disconnect between effort and between reward. Bosses were paying for all-inclusive trips to the Maldives, while people like us could barely afford a leaky caravan in Skegness for the bank holiday weekend. The seeds of injustice, basically, were well and truly being planted. And at the same time, the word disruptor had started to become one of those phrases that just made you want to be a little bit sick in your mouth when you saw it. Every time you jumped online, someone was disrupting something. You could barely open LinkedIn without someone disrupting everything from tech and property through to coffee and socks. But underneath the buzzword, something was definitely happening in our space. The market was really shifting. Agents were starting to ask better questions. Why am I building somebody else's brand? Why am I being capped by somebody else's potential? And why am I doing the work, carrying the pressure, creating the relationships, but not building any meaningful long-term value from it? And that's where this whole EXP thing really became quite interesting. For me personally, EXP didn't arrive as some polished innovation case study. It arrived more like a raft, a rescue boat, a lifeline, if you like. At a point in my life where I wasn't sat there thinking, is this the future of UK estate agency? I was thinking, how do I get through the next 4 weeks? I had financial pressure, anxiety about the future. I had children, as we've mentioned, and I won't go into that again. I had responsibilities and that horrible feeling, just like Scott, that I was capable of more. I just didn't know what more looked like and if I'd ever find it. Then EXP appeared, and at first I thought it was just a better version of the thing that I already knew, a better agency model, a better commission structure, a little bit more freedom, a touch more upside. I thought I was asking for a newer Vauxhall, basically, but what EXP handed me were the keys to a brand new Lamborghini, or on some days, an absolute fucking rocket ship that was on full throttle. I just didn't understand, basically, what it was that I was sat in at the time, because EXP was already delivering what I didn't know I needed as a business owner. EXP had worked out solutions to problems that I didn't even know existed yet. You see, EXP, in my perspective, isn't just a company, it's a literal roadmap. It showed me that I could build a business with income, ownership, and impact. It showed me that having questions didn't equate to weakness. It showed me that working together didn't equate to a dilution of independence. And perhaps most profoundly, it showed me that you could help someone else win without losing anything yourself. And that was a major shift. In the traditional world, opportunity was often protected behind heavy oak doors, whereas at EXP, it felt like glass windows were popping up absolutely everywhere. You could see what people were doing. You could learn from them. You could ask questions. You could get close to people who were further ahead than you. And for an industry that spent years telling agents to guard the secrets, that was completely different and refreshing. And this is where the lone nut theory comes in. Let's give it a watch.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the gut, but what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you crave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they've been ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you.
I think the interesting thing about that video, for me at least, is how quickly the conversation changes. It's no longer, why is this random bloke dancing alone? It becomes, why are we not dancing? And that is exactly what EXP felt like in the beginning. A few people looked a bit mad, a few more joined, and then the brave early adopters became the social proof, and then proof became momentum. And momentum became what I can only describe as a movement. Just look at the people in the room today, the people sat next to you. How the hell we got here, I don't know, but I'm glad to be on the rocket ship still.
And that's the thing. And what we liked most about the video, the commentator kind of come around to the end. When we were putting it together, we noticed the camera shows the people still sat on the sidelines. They're not moving their arms, looking grumpy. At the start, they look like the sensible ones. But by the end, they're the odd ones out. And for me, that kind of sounded familiar. So where are we now? Before I tell you that, I'll tell you where I started. It's the only thing that kind of makes the rest make sense. When I joined EXP, I gave it a year and I told Adam that. That was the plan. Use the model, take what I could, and then go out on my own the second I could afford to. I wasn't a believer. I'd seen these American models come over and fall flat before, and I decided confidently this one would go exactly the same way. And the people who did believe, the ones all in from day one, I thought you were all a bit mad. I definitely didn't join for a community. Quite frankly, there wasn't one. And I know I wasn't the only one. Most of us early adopters were the same. In it for the model, skeptical about the rest, one eye always on the exit. So what stopped me walking out this time? Well, it wasn't any of the things I joined for. It wasn't the commission split. It's not the low costs. It was the people in this room. People who started as names on a screen, then colleagues at best. You're now the ones I ring when I need help, or when I've done anything worthwhile and I need someone to notice. When I joined, community was absolutely the thing I cared about the least. It wasn't a factor at all. I never expected it to matter, although I do want to be straight with you. That lovely bit about how I love being part of EXP because of you lot, that is true, 100%. I am genuinely glad to be part of this community. But if I'm being really honest, the bit that keeps me here is that EXP pisses a lot of people off. The doubters, the old guard, the dinosaurs teaching other dinosaurs to be better dinosaurs. And that's one of Glenn's lines who's just walked in, so that couldn't have been better timing. I was going to nick that and take that for my own, but as you've entered the room, deep down, there's nothing I enjoy more than irritating the people who want us to fail. But here's the funny thing, that urge to wind people up, it's actually turned into something I'm really proud of. Agents Boardroom. That's mine and Ben's collective group within EXP of ambitious agents who back each other, learn together, and grow together. What started as a few conversations is now over 400 agents, so we make up around 40% of the EXP UK network. But the number of agents alone is not the point. Everyone in it has had the months that don't go to plan, the morning you wonder why you still do this, something going on at home that makes a smile impossible to fake. And the difference is with EXP, you're not facing that on your own, but instead you've got someone to lean on who's already had that bad version of your week. And that's what collaboration actually is, not posting about it, not cheering from the sidelines. It's copying what works off someone ahead of you, using it yourself, and then handing it back to someone coming behind. But most of that support is quiet support. You might just help someone win an instruction or make someone feel less alone on a bad day. Or you're the one who notices when they've had a win and deserve recognition. And on that note, because someone else has just walked in at the right time, Adrian Napper over there, who has posted every day for the last 2 years trying to get agents, has landed his first agent this week. And if that doesn't get a round of applause, I don't know what does. Well done, Adrian. None of it looks like much, but this is how our industry changes. Genuine collaboration, agent to agent. So that's where we are now. 2 blokes who joined to leave, but have stayed. The same 2 who thought you believers were mad. Turns out you were all onto something. And here's the bit someone in this room needs to hear. 6 years ago, it's fair to say nobody would have backed me or Ben to be where we are now. We were not the obvious peaks. You saw my CV. I've had 18 goes at it. The difference this time wasn't that I got better. It's that this time I got resilient. And I just kept turning up. That's it. That's the difference. I wish there was more to it. There's not. That's it, I'm afraid. And if anyone in here thinks they've missed the boat, you haven't. 6 years ago, me and Ben were selling an idea, nothing more than that. A belief it could work, an empty box to a certain extent. And that's not what you guys are selling anymore. Everyone in this room is proof this thing works. And we're still in our infancy. You're not behind. We both think you're early.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with all of that. Although I do never go out my way to piss people off personally, but that's just a personal preference, honest. But to be honest, we probably don't need slides for this next bit because we're going to very quickly talk about something that me and Scott are completely aligned on, and that's the EXP opportunity. Now, when people think about opportunity, we often think about the big stuff, the next 10 years, the market share, the growth, the income, the freedom, the exit plan, the life that you could build, and all of that matters, of course it does. But I think sometimes we make opportunity sound so big, so distant, so far away that we forget where it actually starts. It doesn't start in 10 years, it starts in the next 10 minutes. It starts in the conversation that you have when me and Scott finally get off the stage. It starts with the person you sit next to at lunch. It starts with the message or the voice note you send tomorrow morning. It starts in the question that you ask that you was once too embarrassed to. It starts in the decision to stop pretending that you've got everything figured out all by yourself.
Yeah, and that's the important bit. The opportunity in this room isn't just the model, it's the people around. If you look around, you are surrounded by good people who actually tell you how they did it, people who don't guard the good stuff. This, as Ben said earlier, I love the line, it's not an industry of closed doors anymore, it's glass windows everywhere. You can see what people are doing, you can learn, you can ask, just as importantly, you can contribute now. You can get near people who think bigger than you. And if you spend more time around people who think bigger than you, you've got no choice but for your own thinking to change.
But, and I think this is a really important bit, guys, none of this works if you treat opportunity like a lottery ticket. It's not magic. This isn't join, post once or twice on social media, go to one event, get yourself a gilet, and suddenly your life changes. Although, to be fair, I think you'll agree the gilet probably does help. A real opportunity will always ask something of you. It asks you to be resilient always. Not just when everything's going well, but when the listings aren't landing quite as well as they once were. Not just when your diary looks impressive, but resilient when the appointments cancel. Resilient when that valuation that was bang on decides to go elsewhere. Resilient when your post gets a handful of likes and they're from your mum, your partner, and another couple of EXP agents. Resilient when the month is quiet. Resilient when you're doing all the right things on repeat, but the results just haven't caught up with your output yet.
And you've got to be patient, which is something I'm terrible at, by the way, clearly. Everyone wants it to work straight away. You do the work on Monday and you're checking your phone by Wednesday, wondering where the results are. It just doesn't happen like that. Not in our business, it takes time. You just keep going. Even when nobody's noticing your hard work, you just keep going, especially when nobody's noticing.
Yeah, and it's that boring work, it's the unglamorous work, the tedious work, the work that nobody puts on the highlight reel, the follow-ups, the calls, the letters, the viewings, the vendor updates, the market appraisals, the training sessions, the uncomfortable conversations that we all have to have every week. It's the asking for help when you need it and helping someone else when there's nothing in it for you. That is where life really changes. It's not those massive, heroic, few and far between moments. It's the repeated decision to get up and keep on going again and again and again.
And my advice is ask more questions and drop the ego. I'm kind of still working on the second one myself. Go and learn from the best people in this room, and there's some amazing people in this room. And then ask yourself who might be watching you that you once watched like them.
And maybe the biggest thing in all of this is that you have to keep dreaming when everybody else is ready to give up. Because there will always be people who tell you to be realistic. There'll always be people who say the market is too hard, the model is too different, the timing is all wrong, the area is saturated, the opportunity has already passed. But most people say be realistic when what they actually mean is please do not make me question whether or not I gave up on my own dreams too soon. So my advice to you is dream. And dream fucking big, guys, because you only get one crack at this. Build, show up, collaborate, ask questions, send that message, make that call, and work on that relationship.
We know you're worried about the next 10 years, and that's fair enough in business, but honestly, it's the next 10 minutes that matter the most over the next 2 days. That chat you have at lunch, the next person you bravely introduce yourself to, or that question you ask that you've always been embarrassed to ask. EXP changes lives, but it wasn't really EXP, it was the people in rooms like this. And one day, that could be you for someone else.
100%. And if we get that right, if we stay resilient, patient, consistent, open-minded, and generous, and we work and we help each other, this becomes so much bigger than commission. It's bigger than revenue share, would you believe? It's bigger than market share. This becomes, as corny as it sounds, about legacy. Because one day, people will look back on this period of our industry and they'll realize that something fundamentally changed. Not because two blokes made a clever presentation, not because someone in a boardroom somewhere gave permission, but because ordinary agents like me, Scott, and all of you in this room today decided they were no longer willing to think small, no longer willing to work work in isolation or wait quietly for somebody else to build the future that they and their families deserve.
You need to go and build it yourself, and the people to help you are in this room.
So I guess our parting message is do not waste this opportunity that you've got with EXP. Do not waste the next 5 years, but crucially, guys, do not waste the next 48 hours of this conference. Thank you.
Boys.